The wind carried dust across the lonely plains as the last rays of daylight bled into the horizon, painting the sky in fire and gold. Inside his small log cabin, Daniel Carter sat near the crackling fire, nursing a whiskey after another long day of tending to cattle. His days had been quiet for months, ever since the war ended and the frontier grew emptier by the season. Solitude had become his constant companion, until the night he heard the hesitant knock on his door that would change everything. The knock wasn't loud, more like the uncertain tapping of someone afraid to be turned away. Daniel froze, glass still in his hand, listening again. When the sound came a second time, he pushed himself up, boots thudding against the wooden floor, and unlatched the door. What stood before him stole the breath from his chest. A young Apache woman stood barefoot in the dust, her long dark hair dripping wet as if she had crossed a river, strands sticking to her bare shoulders. 2 white feathers hung from her hair, swaying gently in the evening breeze. But what arrested his gaze most was the tattered white cloth she wore, ripped. In so many places it clung to her, formed more like a desperate covering than a dress. Her skin glistened in the dim firelight that spilled out from his cabin, droplets catching the glow. Her eyes met his, wide, fierce, and yet full of exhaustion. And though she spoke no words at first, Daniel sensed the storm of fear and determination behind them. For a moment, neither moved. He could see her chest rising and falling quickly, her hands clutching the torn fabric against her. Daniel's instincts warred within him. Caution demanded he shut the door. For in these lands every encounter carried risk, but something stronger held him rooted. He saw not a threat, but a soul on the edge of collapse. Slowly he stepped aside, his voice rough but gentle. "Come in before the night takes you." She hesitated, her eyes narrowing as though judging his intent, then finally crossed the threshold. The air shifted when she entered. The faint smell of smoke, damp earth, and wild river clinging to her. She stood close to the fire, rubbing her arms, trembling slightly though, whether from cold or fear he could not tell. Daniel kept his distance, watching her, trying to piece together the story, written across her torn clothes and weary expression. At last she spoke, her English broken yet clear enough. "I run. I no go back." Her voice cracked and her gaze dropped to the floor. Daniel didn't push her to explain. He only grabbed a wool blanket from his cot and offered it to her. She looked at it, then at him, before slowly wrapping it around her shoulders. The relief in her eyes was brief, shadowed by something deeper, grief or perhaps terror. The hours passed quietly as the fire dwindled low. She said little, but Daniel didn't need words to see the truth. She was fleeing something, or someone, and the land outside held no safety for her. Her presence in his cabin unsettled him, not because he feared her, but because he felt the gravity of her trust. She had chosen his door out of all the places in the wilderness, and now her fate seemed bound to his. He poured her water, watched her drink with trembling hands, and when her exhaustion became too heavy, he guided her to rest on his cot while he sat, near the door with his rifle across his lap, listening to the night. Sleep eluded him. Her arrival was no accident, he knew. Whatever she had run from might follow, and he found himself silently swearing he would not let harm cross his threshold. The night stretched long, shadows shifting as the fire burned down to embers. Daniel sat with the rifle across his knees, every creak of the old cabin a reminder of what might lurk beyond the dark fields. The Apache woman stirred in her uneasy sleep, murmuring in her language, her brow furrowed as though haunted by dreams. He had seen men hardened by battle look less tormented than she did in that moment. As dawn crept slowly across the plains, painting the room in pale silver light, Daniel rose and stepped outside. The land was silent, stretching endlessly beneath the waking sky. No riders, no tracks, at least not near. Yet he knew it was only a matter of time before her pursuers caught up. When he returned inside, she was already awake. The blanket clutched tightly around her shoulders, her eyes alert and wary. For the first time, she spoke more than a fragment. "They come, soldiers, hunt me." Her words were jagged but heavy with truth. Daniel's stomach tightened. He had fought alongside soldiers once, but he also knew what they were capable of when orders outweighed mercy. He looked at her, at the strength buried beneath her fear, and felt the weight of choice settle on him. He could send her away and avoid the storm, or he could stand with her and risk everything. He set the rifle against the wall and crouched near her, his voice steady. "You're safe here." She searched, his face as if measuring the sincerity behind his promise, then finally gave a small nod. That was when Daniel realized the decision had already been made. Whatever battles lay ahead, he would not abandon her. The day passed with a tense stillness, broken only by the occasional sound of horses far in the distance. Daniel kept watch, teaching her how to load his spare revolver, though her hands trembled when she held it. "No kill," she whispered, shaking her head. "Only live." He respected that, though he knew survival often demanded otherwise. As the sun dipped once more, painting the horizon in flames, the first riders appeared, dark silhouettes cresting the ridge, their horses kicking up trails of dust. The woman's breath caught and Daniel's jaw tightened. He moved to the porch, rifle in hand, and stood firm as the figures drew nearer. But instead of riding straight for the cabin, the men slowed, their leader scanning the valley, as if uncertain of their quarry. Daniel's presence on the porch seemed to give them pause. After a long moment, the riders turned, heading southward, the sound of their hooves fading into distance. Relief swept through him, though he knew it might only be a temporary reprieve. He returned inside to find her standing by the fire, her eyes glistening, not from fear this time, but from gratitude. She whispered softly, "You stay, you help." "Why?" Daniel searched for an answer but found none simple. Perhaps it was the loneliness that had gripped him for so long, or perhaps the fire he saw in her eyes reminded him of the battles he himself had fought. Whatever the reason, he only said, "Because you knocked on my door." That night, as the fire burned bright again, they sat in silence, two souls from different worlds, bound by circumstance and choice. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the weight of solitude lift, and though danger still lingered beyond the horizon, inside that small cabin there was a fragile, unspoken promise that survival was not enough, that perhaps in the wild heart of the frontier, two lives could find meaning in each other's presence. And so, as the night deepened and the land outside slipped once more into shadows, he let her stay, guarding her with a resolve as strong as the old timbers that held the cabin together.